Okay, Charles, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the December 7th Appearance Review Commission meeting. I want to welcome our applicants this evening, our community guests, and certainly my fellow commissioners. Thank you for spending time with us on this very important day in our country's history. December 7th not only is a landmark day for our country relative to service people in this country, but today is Ira Gershwin's birthday. So let's start off with an interesting fact that we should all be aware of. We have a meeting this evening with two cases. I'd like, if I could open by asking Lucas to take a roll call of our commissioners, please. Lucas, you're on mute.
Nada Andrick,
Here.
Richard Brill,
Here.
Devin Castellano,
Here.
Doug Johnson,
Here.
Mason Miller,
Here.
Jeffrey Saad,
Here.
and Charles Smith.
Here. Thank you. I'd like to officially call the meeting to order. And this evening, we have a very streamlined agenda insofar as we do not have meeting minutes. We do not have a consent agenda to review as a commission. We have two important cases to review. And I know there may be some public comments. Certainly, the cases are rich in terms of content. What I'd like to do is outline for everybody the process we're going to go through. And it's a 6-step process this evening for each of the two cases. The cases will be heard in order that they're listed on our agenda, and first case being 2019 AR-37, and the second case being 20 AR-19. We'll first call a case. The case will invite the applicants to then present the case, introducing themselves and whoever they'd like to speak on behalf of their project. I'll then go around to my fellow commissioners and ask for comments and or questions from them, in which the applicants will ideally be able to respond. And then we will have an opportunity as a commission to deliberate. We have several items we need to measure the applications against. I will then ask for public comment, and the applicants will have the ability to respond to public comment and or at least hear. And then after the public comment is concluded, we will take action if action is appropriate. So want to make sure that everyone understands that sequence and respects it. I will start by asking Lucas to introduce the first case, AR-37, please.
Sure. The first case is 2019 AR-37 for 1 Indian Hill Road in petitioner's Indian Hill Club. And they're requesting an appearance review certificate to construct 2 accessory buildings with associated paving, landscaping, and fencing. And this project was before the commission last in February of this year. So it's been a while, but to get you up to speed, this case was also reviewed by the Zoning Board of Appeals. And they gave a positive recommendation for a special use request, as well as several variations associated with the development. So that recommendation will go to the village board. Before it goes to the village board, it's going to be reviewed by the Appearance Review Commission. And I believe the applicant would like to wait to go to the village board until there's a resolution made at the Appearance Review Commission. So that case before the village board is going to be on hold for now. And if there's a vote at tonight's meeting for an approval, then that would go to the village board likely in January. When it was discussed last, there was the main point that was outstanding was the lack of a proper landscape plan. And so that was requested by the commission. That has since been provided and is included in your packet. Of note, there was some correspondence sent from neighboring residents, and some of those comments are already included in your packet. Two were forwarded along to you today. One was received on Friday, which I forwarded on this morning, and that was an email exchange from the architect, OKW, Mark Klimper with their office, and neighbor Lloyd Nelson. So there was an email exchange, and that was forwarded to you earlier today. That will be entered into the record as a part of the case report. And then there was another piece of correspondence that was forwarded on to you this afternoon, and that was a letter dated today from Mike Thompson. He owns a property just south of the proposal. So those two items will be added to the record as part of the case report going forward. And I just wanted to point those out because they were not included in the packet that was sent out on Friday. Based on some of the correspondence that was between Mr. Nelson and the architects and the club, there was a revised landscape plan that was just submitted today. However, due to our meeting rules, we cannot accept applications or modifications to the plans. That being said, the changes were fairly minor and to address outstanding concerns from Mr. Nelson. So I think it's easy enough just to point those out, and I'm sure the applicant will be able to do that as well. But it was the addition of a few trees on the landscape plan as well as fencing. So I think if appropriate, the commission could make those a condition of approval. And with that long-winded summary, I just wanted to make sure I got everything in there. So there's been a lot of updates, but I will hand it over to the applicant, John Talty with OKW.
Thank you, Lucas, very much. Thank you all for your patience with us as we navigate the process, COVID, all the rest of it. Would it be beneficial to you for me to kind of very quickly go back to the beginning and explain what it is that we're trying to do here? I mean, it's been since February, and I'm sure this is not something that, you know, has been on the top of your hit parade since we last got together. So, Lucas, you're in control, I believe, of the imagery, right, and the PowerPoint?
Correct.
Maybe if we just went to the site plan, the proposed site plan as a starting point, it would be a good, good launch.
Okay.
For the conversation.
All right.
Full disclosure, this is my first virtual public hearing of any kind, so bear with me if I appear more clumsy than usual. We've had some in-person ones, but this is the first one I've been doing virtually. So Indian Hill Club has a maintenance facility that's been in place and on site in its current location for, I'm going to say, somewhere 80 to 90 years. Back in the late 50s, a maintenance facility was created. And maybe go to the next image, Lucas. There we go. A maintenance facility was constructed. It's the long, narrow building oriented north-south that occurs on the east side of the property. The building has done a yeoman's work in terms of outliving its purpose. And the world of golf course maintenance and
John,
Yeah,
John, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm going to ask everyone on the line who's not speaking to mute themselves, please.
thank you.
Oh,
Beautiful. Thank you very, very much. So the building, as I said, has kind of outlived its usefulness, and the world of golf course maintenance has evolved profoundly. So what we're proposing are two new buildings on the site, single-story buildings. The square building at the southwest portion of the property is an employee center, which will house offices, locker room for the men and women who care for the golf course, a lunchroom, and a variety of functions that allow the employees of the club and the employees that serve the golf course a better home, fundamentally. The other building to the north is an environmental building. Currently, the equipment wash that's identified, the pesticide storage, and the sand storage are all functions that occur within the context of the existing maintenance building. They don't do a very good job in there. There's kind of a cross-pollination of product that occurs that's not great. And so what we're doing is we're pulling some of those functions out of the maintenance building and isolating it into this, what we're calling the environmental building on the north side. Again, a single-story building, which is very utilitarian in nature. The architecture of which, the palette of which will match the employee center, but will serve a very different function. Part of our effort to improve this site too is really to organize what is a very, in today's scenario, a somewhat frenetic piece of property that has equipment, people, and vehicles, and just scattered about in a very kind of disorganized way. Our hope is that by making these improvements, we provide order where there is no order. We provide parking, legitimate parking where there is really no parking. We provide storage of materials in an appropriate way, and we heighten the effectiveness of this portion of the club property. It's also something that the club and the employees and the members are all taking great pride in, because again, this world has evolved, and it's not simply about a place to hide a tractor or equipment or materials. It's really an extension of the club itself, so that the architecture, the palette, the colors, and the order and kind of pride of place is really wanting to be an extension of what the club is today. The property is completely enclosed by a 6-foot high stockade fence that I believe, and Dave Schlageter, who was on the call, who runs all of this on behalf of the club, I think that fence was replaced within the last 5 or 6 years, perhaps. That fence will remain in place. A new portion of fence will be included at the northeast corner of the property, so that it's replacing a chain link fence that currently exists. The Nelsons, the neighbors to the east, have asked for that, and that's part of what we're improving on the site. But the other thing I think it's important to emphasize in the course of all this, even though it's not part of the architecture and or the aesthetics of this site, is really the improvements that we are making relative to stormwater management, which is a huge thing. the property currently has very little stormwater management to put it bluntly. And what we are doing is fully engineering the site, storing water below grade in a system that will allow it to capture stormwater and release it in appropriate intervals into the infrastructure of Wilmette on Avenue, making it better not only for the site itself, but for the surrounding community. So it's again something I think is going to pay great dividends and allow us, I think, to function far better in a far more appropriate way, be better neighbors, all the rest of it. So as I said, we talked about the buildings last time. We presented the architecture of the buildings. We spoke of the uses, and really when the conversation got down to it, it became a dialogue with the neighbors both on Kenilworth Avenue and the Nelsons to the east and to the north at the northeast corner, really revolving around the stewardship and the improvements to a landscape palette. And I know I was not part of any of the conversations, but the Nelsons have met with Mr. Schlageter from the club on numerous occasions. They, in my understanding, have worked out kind of what the wish list is relative to improving as specifically the northeast corner of the property, the north side of the existing maintenance building. And Lakota landscape architects have been hired, and they have prepared exhibits which demonstrate those improvements, along with an improved Kenilworth Avenue corridor, the landscape outside of the fence line, facing the residences across the street on the south side of Kenilworth Avenue. So I'm not sure how we want to proceed with the conversation. We could go to a landscape plan, but Lucas, you said that the landscape plan that's in this package is not the plan that we spoke or that was sent to you earlier today from Lakota.
Correct. The the plan that's in the current case report was submitted last week.
Got it.
But I can highlight the changes.
I think while we have one other thing as I'm looking at the plan, and I apologize to all of you. One thing to emphasize too, there's 2 points of access to this property. There's the access off of Indian Hill Road, which is the primary access to the site, from not only the employee standpoint, the user standpoint, the club's perspective. That is the entry point. There is an entrance off of Kenilworth Avenue, a gated entrance that is for emergency vehicles and emergency use only. It is not the place in which people drive into the site on a daily basis. We keep that access point for the purpose of emergency vehicles in the event that we would ever need them, and that's the reason for that curb cut on Kenilworth Avenue. So I think I just wanted to reinforce that as part of the conversation too, that the traffic, the vehicular traffic, truck traffic is all coming off of Indian Hill Road. So here's the landscape plan that was that has had some improvements made to it. Dave Schlageter, if you're on the call here, could you please weigh in on this and explain it? I think you understand it better than I.
Good evening, everyone. As John said, my name is Dave Schlageter, and I'm the ground superintendent for the golf course at Indian Hill. Take care of the golf course and all the grounds. I've been with the club for a little over 28 years now and have watched this property ebb and flow between wet and dry and dust and mud, and find this proposal very exciting, as you can imagine. The landscape plan that we have here on in front of us includes a lot of additional perimeter planting for our neighbors, and with not much interior planting. And then the changes that Lucas, I think, was going to highlight is right there by Lucas's hand in the bottom right.
Yeah, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. I don't know if that's large enough for most people to see.
Thank you, Lucas.
Yeah, I'm good with it, so I think I can carry on. So directly up from Lucas's hand, those two pine trees were, before, those were inside the fence. And the Nelsons asked us to move those outside the fence so that we wouldn't have to look at the fence, and that makes perfect sense. And then as we move down into the left, there's one pine tree right there that's new. And that pine tree is proposed to replace an existing maple tree that the Nelsons and I have been looking at for years. And the maple tree, now it sounds like the Nelsons would like the maple tree removed and pine trees replaced in its place. And we have one pine tree there, but I do believe we have two additional to make a total of 5 pine trees in that spot. And those will be large pine trees, 15 to 18 feet. And they're going to create a significant screen year-round immediately. As well, if Lucas were to drag that hand to the right to the fence line, and that fence line on the north side of the last pine tree it terminates as a 4-foot chain link fence for about 10 feet. And the Nelsons have asked the club to replace that small section of chain link fence with the 6-foot stockade, so it matches the fence around the rest of the perimeter, and that is something that the club's agreeable to do.
Dave, question, is it this area or further north?
Those are the 2 additional pines.
Mm-hmm.
The fence is farther to the right. That's the fence line right there.
Okay.
So that from that little section right there right now is chain link fence, and we can replace it with the stockade fence to match everything else. That's it exactly, Lucas.
Okay.
And I think I've covered it all.
Dave, do you want to touch a little bit on what's happening on Kenilworth Avenue too?
Well, Kenilworth Avenue, as we look at Kenilworth Avenue, there is a significant amount of tall trees that have been planted through the years along Kenilworth Avenue. And I know what she's got going on there is to augment the tall trees and to enhance the entire landscape with some understory. So it's really a beautification. Those existing trees, boy, I keep reaching for my mouse to try to move around, but the existing pine trees were put in the last 4 or 5 years for our neighbors, and they're maturing into fine trees right there. And we also have some lindens. So although on the plan, it doesn't look like there's a significant amount of new landscape, the landscaping that is there is significant.
I think it's important to know too that currently the property that the club controls and owns goes to the center line of Kenilworth Avenue. As part of this improvement, the club is giving that land back to the village, and will be moving that property line approximately, I think it's about 50 feet, isn't it, Lucas, to the north?
Yeah, it's roughly where the fence line is.
Correct. And so everything south of the fence line really becomes village property. However, the club, as it always has, will continue to maintain that that right of way and improve upon it when necessary, and cut the grass and take care of the landscape and so forth. But I think that's also worth noting in terms of this conversation. That was a complexity to all of this. Given the age of the property and how long the club has controlled it, their control went to the center line of Kenilworth Avenue, like all the other properties did at one point in time, but no longer do. So now the right of way moves, the property line moves to the north. And as you can see, Dave alluded to the fact that the landscape inside the property is limited between immediately south of the employee building. As you can see in this plan, is the area that is identified as the stormwater control, stormwater storage underground. So it's going to prohibit us from planting anything really over the top of it, given those pipes that you see, which sit below grade. It's going to preclude us from landscaping over the top. The rest of the improved maintenance yard is really just that, a maintenance yard, and it's necessary for equipment to be able to move freely within the context of that space. So perhaps it's an opportunity to take some questions, or if there's anyone, Mr. Smith, if you would like to direct the conversation.
Yes, I wanted to.
Please do so. I will answer and speak to anything. It's easy, but it may just behoove us to get on with some of the conversation of specificity.
Yes. Can you hear me, Lucas?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. I wanted, Dave and John, thank you. I wanted to give you a platform until you felt appropriate to ask for questions. So very much appreciate the overview of the project. We've all looked at the submitted materials. I think with the explanation that Dave and Lucas's handy drawing work provided for us, we now understand the updated landscaping plan at the northeast corner. So what I'd like to do is offer our panel an opportunity to ask questions or make any comments. And first, I'd like to give the floor to Nada Andrich, please.
So here's my question, just for my own understanding. Is there any dispute between the neighbors and the club at this point of this whole discussion? Did the club feel that you met neighbors' comments? This is simply something that I didn't quite understand at this point of time. Is there any argument in the amount of landscape, the size, the shape, etc.? And what are we actually going to be approving?
I think we've met relative to the neighbors. I'm confident that the club has done a good job in working with the Nelsons specifically and solving that back corner. They may still have a few questions, and we'll ask those tonight. And I think the Kenilworth Avenue corridor is strong and improved, and additional landscape has been added there as well for the folks across the street. So to answer your question, I don't think there's any real dispute with any of the neighbors. In terms of the approval, it's my understanding that the project in its entirety would be approved from an architectural planning standpoint and from a landscape architecture standpoint.
Mhm.
And Nada, I will add on to what John said, that we will in a few minutes go through point by point the standards overview. You may recall that we have approximately 16 standards, some of which apply to this, some don't. We'll just go through that in a very methodical manner. And then at the end of that, if we so choose, we have the ability to grant a vote on a grant for an appearance review certificate, or continue if we so choose, or recommend. So that's what's going to happen.
Thank you, Charles.
Any other questions, Nada?
No.
Very good. Devin, would like to give you an opportunity, please. Devin, if you're speaking, you're on mute. Devin? Why don't we,
I don't think she's on mute, but for some reason it's not coming through.
okay, we can hear you now, Devin.
Okay, I just apologize. I had to take my headset off. The one question I have, just in terms of the comments and correspondence, was is there any change of either equipment, materials, or anything of that sort? So would you be housing anything that is currently not being housed on this site?
No, it's a very good question. So the site will function exactly as it functions today. It's not, there's going to be no additional equipment. There's going to be no, I mean, I shouldn't say that. I mean, a mower may be replaced for a newer version of said mower, but the functionality of the site will remain as is. The intensity of use will remain as it is. There will be no more employees as a function of this. It will remain the same as it does now. It will just hopefully, we're confident that it will function better.
Okay. And then for the, and I believe back in February, there was some discussion about the west, the landscaping on the west perimeter of the site. Is there any additional landscaping that's occurring in that location?
No, we continue to kind of improve that portion of Indian Road on the west side of the fence. There's an issue of vehicular visibility as you come around that corner. We've to my understanding, the neighbors have not made any comments relative to how that all looks on the west side of the fence. It's actually quite heavily landscaped right now.
Yeah, can you see the landscape plan?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, so this would just be identifying the new landscaping that's out there. It's a little bit bolder. So there's already 2 here, 5 shrubs over here, grouping of 3 evergreens right here. So there's some landscaping that's being added.
Okay.
There's 11, 13, 15 new plants that are being planted along that west border.
Okay. That was it for my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, folks, for being responsive to all of our comments. I'm sure it's difficult. I guess I have the flip question to Nada's question, and that is, are there any changes to the buildings or the sight lines to the buildings since we last had our meeting?
There are none. The buildings have not gotten any bigger. We've reduced the scale of these so that their impact outside the fence line is de minimis. So no, to answer your question, they remain as is, as they were back in February.
Okay. I think that's the only question I have.
Very good. Thank you. Commissioner Saad.
Hello. Thanks for presenting this evening. A couple of questions that I have for you. In wanting to maintain the integrity of the overall look and feel of the club, I guess I go to the existing maintenance building. Would you be proposing any updates to the white aesthetic of the other campus, the new 2 white buildings, and then this building being green, and it's sort of not as updated as the entirety to really create that holistic piece that you're talking about, for that whole campus feel of the course and course area, as a question. And then other question I have, the 7 spots that are on the north side of the proposed building, are those parking spots?
These right here,
Let me see. Yeah, are those?
No,
those are storage
uh,
bays.
those are storage bins for gravel. They're open air partitioned little storage bins for the likes of topsoil, gravel, sand, things like that, so that they're separated. What occurs right now, and these things are just sitting in piles around the
Yep.
site. We're building low height walls that are going to allow us to keep all that stuff clean and in one place. Versus kind of strewn about. Back to the question of the existing maintenance building, we were not planning on making any improvements to it. It's a pre-engineered building. Opportunities for said improvements are minimal in term, and that was really our first. That was where we began the journey as a club, was looking at the building and saying, hey, what could we do to this? And the reality is there's really nothing that could be done to it given its age. So, and it's built with typology. So hence we could paint it. We could.
Yeah. I mean, but then, it would match a little bit more in the campus field, but here nor there, just a question. And then Lucas, with the container, with those storage areas, to the right, what is the outline? There's an A on one of the drawings. If you go to the right of where I was just talking about the storage bins.
To the right.
And then up. Yep, then up. That square. What is that?
This is a pad where dumpsters are going to be placed.
Got it.
Is that showing up right here?
Okay, just fine. I guess where this pad question and the storage bins of 7 go to is on the.
Currently dumpsters that sit in dirt.
Yep, and that's fine. I guess where I'm going with are the 2 30-inch oak trees that are at the spot of 1, 2, and 3 of your storage bins, or really 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
And they're large specimen trees. They're really old trees as well. If you go to the landscape plan, Lucas, you can see where they're X'd out as the 1, 2, and 3. Yep, those guys. So I guess, was there any intent or any sort of site planning looked at to try to minimize the losing of, 3, I understand, being close to the building. 1 and 2 are sort of in the yard area, but if you sort of took your line of your dumpster in the right-hand side of 2, the 2 bay, you might be able to save 1, possibly 2 of those large center trees. And when you look at Google Earth and other imagery programs, it really shows how much of those trees make an emphasis on that site for people viewing into the project as well.
Right. The tree identified as number 3 on that landscape plan was that was one that the building, the employee building used to sit about 50 feet or 33 feet or something like that closer to Kenilworth Avenue. We moved that building to the north per the request of the Zoning Board of Appeals because of this new property line that is evolving as a function of this process. Our property line currently goes to the middle of Kenilworth Avenue, as I stated, and so we were locating that building relative to that property line. And so over the course of a couple of meetings, that building kept pushing further to the north, so that it, one, gave us a more robust 50-foot proposed setback from the new property line, and also pushed it more to the middle of the site, so that it became less and less impactful to the neighbors across the street. So that was the driver for the location of that building. That building ended up there, and as a result, given the foundation, given the excavation that's going to occur with that building, those trees are falling victim to that.
John, had that been presented upon if the village made the request to move that building north, had this current location and the impact of its location on the trees been presented and approved previously?
Yeah, that was all part of that was part of a conversation with the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay.
Okay. So I got Charles.
Thank you, Jeff. Mr. Miller, the floor is yours.
Hello. Most of my questions have been addressed, but I would concur with Commissioner Saad about about losing the oak trees there. It's a shame. Do those storage bins have foundations, or I'm sure they do, right?
Yes.
They're a concrete block or something? Or?
It's a painted CMU wall, yes,
Okay.
with a foundation.
So you're probably have to cut. Those roots will be cut pretty, extremely, because they're so close to the trunk. Even if you try to keep them, you probably lose them. And yeah, that's it really. The other questions have been already addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brill, your comments, please. Questions?
Okay, I'm unmuted, I trust.
Yes, you are.
Okay, good. Some questions. The 7 storage bins, do they exist right now?
No, sir, they do not. The material, the material that's going to go in those bins is all on site right now. It's just loosely dropped on the property. And so what we're trying to do is clean it up.
Okay. How tall will they be?
6 feet.
Okay. Secondly, the original proposal for sand storage way back when was a tower that trucks would come underneath and drop. Has that been eliminated totally?
Yes, sir. Yeah, the sand silo gone.
That'll be the 15-foot height of that building. Okay. And finally, the concrete pad for 30-yard dumpsters. What total height do you envision when the dumpsters are there, or any other materials?
Well, the dumpsters are out there right now, and maybe Dave could answer this better than I, but I'm guessing that the total height, the pad is going to be obviously a grade. and the dumpsters will probably sit 5 feet high off of grade. They
Okay.
get filled with materials and they get emptied.
Okay, none of this will be visible to the neighbors.
No,
Right.
sir.
Okay, good. And finally, Lucas sent us in different points some letters from neighbors raising questions and negotiating with all of you. I hope that one or more of the neighbors would be on the Microsoft team calls here to be able to talk about that and share their perspective.
Yes.
Richard, there will be, as I mentioned at the beginning, right after this deliberate, or right after our comments here, there will be an opportunity for public comment.
Okay, sounds good. Those are my questions.
Okay, I believe that is all 6 of my peers. John,
Could I ask one follow-up question?
Yes, you may.
The storage bins that are, is it planned or is it possible to put some sort of decorative cement cap on them so that people with a higher view from second floors aren't looking at bare block?
No, certainly. I think it would behoove us to do that anyway, because we want to protect the integrity of the top of that wall so that they have a cap. The painted CMU's walls would have a cap, a stone cap of some kind, or cast stone cap, just to keep water from getting down in there and destroying the integrity of the wall. So that's a great idea.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Doug. I believe everyone's had an opportunity. I'd like to ask a couple of questions. I'd like to compliment you on the well thought out scheme. Very nice to see that care is taken and given to a utilitarian function. Frankly, it's not surprising given the quality of the club. I will also endorse Mr. Saad and Mr. Miller's disappointment on losing those 3 oak trees. I think, that probably could have been a priority given to the saving of those trees versus moving the building 50 feet from the property line, which I in my opinion, would have minimal impact on the neighbors. But as I understand, it's already been reviewed, and you were in many ways guided by the village to have that location. So I don't know that it's appropriate for us to change that at this point. I have a general question about site lighting. I see that there are light sconces identified on the new employee center.
Yes.
I see that there is a light fixture in your submittal from Vega. Question, is that the same fixture that's shown that's on the employee center?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so there are 4 of those fixtures, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and John, do you know what lamp color is being used there?
I don't. I apologize.
Okay, I think given the overall fencing and landscape, it's not that big of a deal. We usually are very attending to light spill onto property lines for neighbors and that type of thing. But given the location of this, in the conditions, I don't think that's a big deal. Other question though, is there site lighting in general for the paved areas, the service yard, the parking that would typically be afforded in a public way, or no?
There's no site lighting proposed. We want to keep it. We don't want there to be site lighting just for purposes of trying to keep keep it quiet as it is today for the surrounding neighborhood.
Okay, fair
so
enough.
that the only lighting is really on the building at the entry.
Very good. I just wanted to make sure that I could still read drawings because I didn't see any. So thank you for confirming that ability. I've also one question, and I know it's not necessarily the Appearance Review Committee's role, but it's just more of a question. from an equity position perspective. First of all, I'd like to compliment the fact that part of the concept, at least in narrative, is to provide a quality environment for the workers. So that, to me, in and of itself, is a gesture that should be noted and a benefit to Wilmette. So I think just the concept of the employee center is good. Within that employee center, there's a men's and a women's locker room. There's a decided difference in size and numbers. I want to make sure, number one, that we're meeting the minimum code, especially for the females that would be working here. And just more of a general question, is the general equity of the number of fixtures within the men's versus the women's a reflection of the workforce? Is it a reflection of a community, the club's desire? Or could you just address that quickly?
Sure. There are no women employees of this facility, but we want to accommodate that potential to occur. There has never been, and Dave or Jeff, you could chime in on this, but I don't believe there's ever been a female employee of the grounds crew at Indian Hill. But we know that moving forward, everything, this is all subject to change, and we want to be respectful of that and provide that opportunity if and when that arises. So the women's locker room will most likely sit empty for some period of time until a female employee is brought on board with the maintenance crew.
Okay, thank you. Forgive me if I should know this answer, but is the club a mixed gender club, or is it male only?
Mixed gender.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I do not have any further comments. In terms of the committee, I think we had most of our questions answered. We have line of sight, if we so choose, to make a motion with two potential revisions to the application as submitted. One being the addition of the I'm take that back, 2 additional pine trees in the northeast corner. And then the other concept that Mr. Johnson brought up about the cap on the material storage bins. I'll ask one more time to the commissioners if there's any further questions or comments before we go to the public comment section.
I did have one follow-up, and of course I must have appeared to have dropped the ball on lighting. Since we don't have any, as I recall as well, lighting that's up on poles, I still think if it's possible to commit and condition approval of this on lighting being no more than 4,000 K, so we don't have that issue kind of creeping up or have some, giant white lights on buildings that kind of make it an alien glow from the fence.
Couldn't agree with you more. Happily do that.
Thank you.
So to our committee, when that motion is made, if it's made, then I recommend that be a stipulation as well. Nada?
Yes, I would like to go back to the issue of the oak trees and the bins. I suppose probably we should have been a little better informed what is happening really there on the site. And I would like to add my sorrow, so to say, to the records about cutting these 2 trees. And I'm wondering, I would like to hear architect, how did you feel about displacing this? As I understand, I have not seen these trees, but I understand that they are really large and mature trees. About this, cutting the trees in order to put the bins. And is there any way to reconfigure the bins? This is a question. I understand that all went up and down through approval.
Sure.
I am really feeling very bad about losing trees.
I completely concur. I'm married to a landscape architect. So, these beautiful living, breathing things are very important and hit very close to home. The sighting of these trees, sadly, is, they sit in the middle. It's very difficult to work around these given what has to happen as how how the maintenance yard functions both today and in the future. And I know I speak for Dave Schlageter when in saying it's sad. It's not our intent to take these trees. I mean, it was not our intent to get rid of these trees, and we share your kind of sadness with all of this.
Thank you.
John, again, maybe we're going to be a little bit of a dog with a bone in the mouth, but there's not the employee center, but the other building, the equipment building,
The environmental building.
environmental building, and there's no way to push that north, the dumpster pad north and the bins north, to create the same distance between the bins and the equipment building, and avoid those trees.
The environmental building, we've already pushed north per the advice of the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's currently sitting within the setback. There would normally be a 50-foot required setback on that property line. The zoning board asked us to move it inside this was all part of the strategy of moving all the elements of the maintenance yard north, getting it further and further away from Kenilworth Avenue. Not only the employee center, the bins, everything that you see there as part of that kind of new quad has all been shifted to the north. And so part of our ZBA approval was getting the variance on they requested it, the variance on the environmental building, which now sits within the setback, as you can see on that exhibit.
Yeah, I see that, and I guess if the ZBA gave a variance and approved this, probably would open up a jurisdictional issue here if we went back. But okay, I think we've made known our sentiments on that issue. Anyone else? Okay, I'd like to open up the floor to any public comment, and I'm not sure the protocol, Lucas, on how we can reach out to the public. Does Karen do that? Do you do that? What's our process here?
I think there are likely some residents on this call who would like to speak. So maybe you can suggest if they would like to speak to just first identify themselves, and then we can call them one by one.
I don't know if you can hear me. This is the Nelson. We're on 847-565-5099. We don't have a visual.
Okay. Okay, great. Yep, I see you.
I'll mute now.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? I am seeing a chat message on our YouTube chat. There. Oh, never mind. This is from Mr. Nelson saying he's not able to get through and on the team. So never mind.
Mike Thompson, I'd like to speak.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Jennifer Boyd is on too. I'd say a few words.
Sorry, was there another person? I saw heard from Mike Thompson and then.
Yeah, Jennifer Boyd.
Oh, Jennifer Boyd. Okay, all right. there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay. Chairman, is there a particular order?
I think we should offer the floor to Ms. Boyd first, please.
Okay.
Okay. My comments are mostly just to respond to what I've heard tonight. This would be the third time, or at least I think, that I've talked at one of these things. So to Nada's question about the neighbors, I think the neighbors would actually prefer none of this happened, but we understand the process, and actually have really appreciated both the zoning board and this group. I think you've asked a lot of good questions, and over time the situation has improved, but for the record, we would have preferred it stay the way that it is. Just a few comments on what has been said, and I read the materials. Just one thing, just to make sure the record is straight. My property, you can see these sight lines from the first floor. So the idea that I think the comments talk about the second floor, but I see half the maintenance shed from the first floor. So just for the record about where the sight lines are for the neighboring properties. Second, just an observation, because the question was asked about the existing maintenance building and how there's nothing that can be done to upgrade that. It's interesting to me, and I know maybe not a topic of conversation here, but they could have torn that down. I mean, I don't think there was anything against tearing that down and starting from scratch with a new type of building in that same location, but just an observation there. On the oak trees with the bins, I actually do like that the zoning board moved the building back. I think that was an improvement in terms of our sightline. I do understand the oak trees though, and I actually also see the oak trees as a stormwater maintenance plus in terms of the roots. That does help with stormwater. So, one possibility I see there is just eliminating some of those bins. We talked about reconfiguring or moving the building back, but that's a third possibility that has not been brought up yet. And then the last thing I would just say is on the stormwater management. And I know you've gone back and forth on this, and I only bring it up because it was brought up once again today about them being good neighbors and having this stormwater structure underneath that property. But let's not forget how much impermeable surface they are adding to this property and the amount of extra water that they're going to have to retain, and that's going to be going into the systems for that. We had a large rain this past spring, and I didn't get any water coming off this property onto my property. So the idea that it's an existing water problem, I don't believe that it is, but they are doing a lot of to change that. And so I just continue to encourage, as creative as we can be on the stormwater management front, that I appreciate the system that they're proposing for below the surface, but the Chicago area has spent billions and billions with a B of dollars on that deep tunnel system, and it fills up every time there's a major rain. At some point, those systems fill to capacity with the changing climate, and it actually, obviously, I guess, is better than nothing, but it's not a plan like as much natural materials that absorb water the way it should, instead of adding more and more impermeable surface, is really the best answer to those types of problems. So those are my comments. I appreciate the changes that have been made. Those are just some of my reactions to some of the things that have been said today. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Thompson.
I think I'm unmuted now.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, my name is Mike Thompson, and my wife and I have lived in Wilmette for over 30 years. And over about 3 years ago, we made a purchase of a house and property directly across from the site here, quite near the southeast corner of the property on Kenilworth Avenue. And we did this on behalf of our daughter, and we wanted to give her and her young family a start and be able to enjoy the same benefits that Wilmette has offered me and my wife over the years. I have not been approached by the Indian Hill Club. I view that as being unfortunate at this point in time, because maybe a lot of these things could have been dealt with ahead of time. But I have some concerns with respect to the project and quite specifically with the southeast corner of the project itself and the lack of buffering that's been afforded to the southeast corner from the development of from the project development. I sent some pictures along earlier this afternoon to Mr. Syverson's attention, and particularly involves the stockade fencing and the emergency gate that's along Kenilworth Avenue. This is directly opposite the house in which my wife and her my daughter and her 2 young children live in, and it's kind of worn, the fencing as well as the gate, kind of tired looking. And while full replacement of the fencing, barrier and access gate is not altogether necessary, I'd like to see some regular cleaning of the surfaces of the gates and the fencing there, and perhaps some intermittent application of wood treatment to preserve the luster of the wood. It goes a long way to preserving the integrity of the residential neighborhood there. The gate supports I think are probably adequate enough at this point in time, but really a couple nice stone or brick columns supporting that gate structure would probably be more in tune with the residential nature of the area, and certainly be not much more appealing in appearance than the 2 metal pipes that are presently sticking out of the ground there. I've got with respect to the plantings in the southeast corner there, the buffering plantings, we weren't consulted on that, and apparently they're going to put 2 or 3 serviceberry bushes in there. And as you know, the serviceberries aren't something that give us any type of greenery or coverage 12 months out of the year. So I'm wondering if maybe some sort of an adjustment could be made there and allow for some evergreen plantings. I've indicated a couple species in my letter, and maybe some consideration could be given there to give us a little bit more coverage and insulation from the commercial industrial development that's going in across the street there. I stand with the board members here on the loss of those 3 old oak trees, and maybe we could save 1 or 2 here. I understand the one is real close to the foundation of the structure, but maybe those 2 others, is it really worth it for those couple of bins to lose those really too old and grandiose old oak trees? They're really quite stately when you stand across the street from them, and I'm sure it's been a joy to observe by all the neighbors over the years to see that stand of oaks there. So I'd like to see that thing visited, and I don't, even if it meant moving that, I'm not going to say about that 3rd tree. If we were consulted about it, we probably would have gone along with moving the building closer to the Kenilworth Avenue property line. But that's not the case as I understand it, but maybe we could still save those 2 other trees. I think it's really important, because you're not going to get those back, not within our lifetimes, not within the lifetimes of my 2 little grandchildren that are living there. So I think that's an important consideration. The body of the plan indicates that 50 feet is being rededicated back to the village along the village parkway there. I would hope that and the indication has been given here earlier that that parkway will be continued to be maintained by the Indian Hill Club, and I appreciate that. If you travel further west on Kenilworth Avenue, you'll see where along that parkway, the village has allowed over the years to have residents go into that parkway area there and really beautify it on their own. There's been plantings and flowers and bushes put in there to augment whatever was already there. I'm wondering if some sort of accommodation could be afforded to the residents to allow the residents to participate in the maintenance of that parkway area itself, similar to what's being done further west on Kenilworth Avenue. It's quite appealing, and I'd hate to let that go since it's going to kind of turn into a no man's land. I don't think the village is going to expend a lot of money in maintaining that parkway area. And if some sort of accommodation could be lent to the residents in the area to maybe build up that area from a planting standpoint, I think it would assist in serving as even more of a buffer to this development plan of the Indian Hill Club. Couple other things that came up. I think that building, the standing building there in the southeast corner that's been there for many years, has been unpainted for many, many years. It's even in multiple colors, and maybe the Indian Hill Club could consider kind of unifying the whole campus there by giving a good coat of paint there that would be consistent with the rest of the new structures that are being put in place. Yeah, these are just some of the considerations that I've come up with, and I would hope that you would take this into consideration when you're doing your assessment and making your recommendation to the village board. I thank you for your time today. I appreciate the attention you give to the village and its residents. Your true service to the village is much appreciated, and I've gotten a better feel for this thing just by sitting here and going through this video conference. So something's good has actually come out of this COVID-19, I guess. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Thompson, thank you for your thoughtful comments and questions. What I'd like to do is give the floor to Mr. Nelson, and then there are a few things from the three sets of comments I'd like to follow up with John and Dave after we hear Mr. Nelson's comments. The floor is yours, okay. Mr. Nelson.
Can you hear me okay? It's actually Mr. and Mrs. Nelson. We're both here, Lloyd and Peggy Nelson.
Far be it from us to slight Mrs. Nelson. Welcome.
We've been here long enough to be Ozzie and Harriet Nelson, but maybe not too many of you know who Ozzie and Harriet Nelson were or are. Anyway, we've been residents for 29 years and have had a pretty good relationship with Dave and the golf course, and so I'm not going to pick any real big issues with what John and Dave have said tonight. I do have one correction that I'd like to make, and Lucas, that is where you drew the fence initially was the correct place, the 6-foot high fence. It's not at the far northeast end. It's down off of the corner of the building there. So I don't know, Lucas, if you can bring that up again and where you put your red line. Anyway, that's trivial because there's a fence there. The chain link fence is there now anyway. And I'd also like to thank Dave and the architect people. Mark was the name of the architect who we finally got to resolve this, for making the changes today on the plan that involve the now 5 firs in our corner there, as well as the removing our maple tree. That's hopefully you guys all saw the copious amounts of photos that I sent in to Lucas and he distributed in the package. So having said all that, we're happy. We're very happy with the results of those negotiations. There's an 800-pound gorilla in the room, and a couple of you kind of alluded to it, and that specifically is the northeast corner, and let's call it the ubiquitous asphalt pad that's in the new area there. And that asphalt pad calls for the removal of 20 very mature burning bushes. And they're a good 15, 17 foot high, I noticed. They reach up to the top of the building even. And you probably saw one of my pictures where they're a bright, brilliant red in the fall and everything. All 20 of those, and actually I counted the other day, I think there's 22 of them. They're all gone. They're all being torn down, and that corner there is being squared off, and a 25 by 30 or thereabouts asphalt pad is being put there, and fence replaced by just 7 bushes. So the whole north perimeter is going to look a lot differently, and it'll look a lot differently for a number of years because burning bushes aren't going to grow that fast. And we just can't seem to get an answer out of the golf course as to what is going on in that pad. And I know that may not be the purview of this group. We're trying to work with the zoning people on that. But aesthetically, from a site point of view, that is the closest area to our house. That is what we look at from our second floor master bedroom. And we're deathly afraid that that's going to become a junkyard. And if it's not a junkyard, it may become an active thoroughfare where we get the beeping of trucks backing up, or we get the movement of trucks or vehicles. And we just don't understand why a project this enormous and this extensive has to also include ripping out 20 of these bushes just to put a little pad there and nothing else. There's nothing else going on in that area. And again, it's the 800-pound gorilla that nobody's talked about, but nobody knows what's going on in there, nuclear fusion or something. What is it? So I will point out that according to the latest plan, there seems to be adequate space for that same thing without losing those bushes on the northwest corner of the property. So that's the 800-pound gorilla that I wish that people would discuss and talk about. We wrote extensively about it in our emails and that, and I'm surprised nobody brought it up. But we'd also like to point out that we too are big fans of those oak trees. My wife especially appreciates those. Those are something that we look out our bedroom window and can see in the summer. And it's very much a shame that they have to go. And I don't know if there's a way to save them or to nudge that building a little bit further back south or whatever. And we're also like to echo the comments that have been made that we're not a big fan of the existing green ugly building that is having nothing done to the external side of it. So that has remained that way for the years that we've been here. It's a little over 30 now, and they did paint the roof maybe 20 years ago or so, but it's an ugly white now. So the gentleman who alluded to what the Google Maps picture looks like was right. That looks like an eyesore from the sky. Fortunately, we don't live in the sky. Anyway, if anybody has any questions of us about it, it's wonderful that the club has agreed to work with us on the sight lines that we have from our bedroom. It's not so wonderful that they want to rip out all those burning bushes and the fence that's there and not share with anybody what's going on there. I'll mute.
Okay, Mr. Nelson, thank you very much. Appreciate your observations and frankly your questions. Let's do this. I have written down what I pulled out from those 3 sets of comments. 4 issues that were raised that I do believe deserve responses to. There were many observations, but I'm going to ask these 4 as a summary for the from the community, and then if my fellow commissioners want to add to that, feel free. The first one is relative to the bins. There are 6 of them. It was observed, and as a few of us commented about the oak trees, 2 of them, the first 2, numbers 1 and number 2, I believe, are the ones that appear to be in conflict with 2 of the oak trees. To both John and Dave, is there a possibility to eliminate 2 of the bins and move them to the what would be, I believe, the east, to ensure that the bins wouldn't go into the root pattern of the trees, and save at least 2 of those oak trees? John, you're on mute. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. I never mute myself. Dave, do you want to speak to the nature of the profoundly sensitive root structures of oak trees?
Yeah, those oak trees are unlikely to. Typically, any construction around an oak tree has to stay outside of the drip line of the trees. Those are really big trees, and it would take more land than just the 12-foot bins to save those 2 trees. And then as well, typically those trees are very sensitive to construction, even outside their root zone, and grade changes. So I don't know that those trees would survive in any case, even with just the building next door to them.
Okay, yeah, when I looked at the plan diagram from the Lakota group, it maybe it's just a graphic. It appears that the canopy isn't that big, but your remarks are probably quite more accurate relative to the age and size of them. Okay, so that's a response from the club and from the architect. The next item that was raised had to do with painting of one of the items, painting of the existing building. Would like to ask that question of both Dave and John, if that is a consideration. Obviously, there's some cost impacts there, but it appears that that's been raised more than once this evening.
The building right now is kind of a dark green, and I think Mrs. Nelson just made the comment about how we painted the roof 20 years ago and made it worse because we called more attention to it. I think there's part of that maintenance building that it's best left alone, because my fear would be that if we painted it white to match the other buildings, we're going to call way too much attention to the scale of that building. It's enormous. And so, and it's also the tallest building on the property. The existing maintenance building sits taller than the proposed buildings that are going to go to its west. So my fear is, by painting it, just for the sake of painting it, that it's going to really stick out far more than it ever did for the neighbors that look at it, whether it be across the street, down the street, while they're walking by, whatever. Dave, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, the roof was, we put a new roof on that building in, this is a close guess, about 2009. And it was an insulated roof that's a manufactured white tarp that's pulled over the top, and it's held up very well. The roof that it covered was aged and rusted, and the club, at great expense, made that roof a lot nicer. And the reason I know that It's just a little over 10 years old, is because I know that the warranty on the roof is 10 years old, and I'm waiting for it to start leaking since the warranty is over. So it's a good roof, and it's brand new within the last 11 or 12 years. The color of the building it hides in with the landscape very well. I couldn't agree more with John Talty. That's a building that's better left hidden than brought more attention to.
Okay, thank you for that response. I trust your professional advice on that. You know the property quite well, John. Another topic that was raised by Mr. Thompson, and my instincts are that this is not for this committee, but it had to do with maintenance of the parkway south of the new property line. And there was an request that be a community-based maintenance protocol. I don't necessarily know or frankly believe that is part of the purview of this particular group, and that's more of an operational and an agreement with the city and club. But I would ask John and Dave if you have any observations on that specific issue.
John, if you would let me,
Go for it.
Just to the west, that the residents are helping take care of. That's part of a group called the Friends of Thornwood Park. And Susan Gatto is my contact there. The club has donated materials and labor to help with that area. And we've been a part of that, and we're proud to give back to the community right there. It's a natural area, and that's the way she likes it, with wildflowers. And then at the club's lot line, it transitions to a more maintained look. And with the amount of planning going on in there won't be any room for paths. We could add wildflowers, I suppose, but there's not going to be even much grass left in that area with the proposed planting that the club is proposing. So I'm not sure that setup fits well there. Now, as we go through this project and the club moves that land to the village, the reason that's never been done is because the property has never changed hands. It's been the club's property forever, and as property changes hands in the village will acquire as easement parkways, and it makes perfect sense. And everyone is used to that from the sidewalk to the street is villages, and they landscape it. And if you need a tree, you can split the cost with the village, but the homeowner always takes care of that. And nobody ever questions that. And that's exactly the kind of relationship that the club will have with the village. The parkway area will be owned by the village, just like every other house on the street. And the club will take care of it, just like every homeowner does. And frankly, we're proud of that area. There are days it looks better than others, but I think we do a pretty good job over there.
Okay, thank you, Dave, for that response. One of the other very, I thought, important points to discuss and understand better is the point that Mr. Nelson brought up about the 22 burning bush hedge removal on the northeast corner of the site. And as important as those oak trees are, it sounds like those bushes, given their size and impact on the screening of the yard, I'd like to personally like to hear the response on addressing that issue. In general, the concept of organizing the yard to move machinery around in a more coordinated manner makes all the sense in the world. I don't know that the noise is going to change. So I frankly, I don't think that's an issue that we should be addressing if you're keeping the same equipment. As John said, it's not going to change the noise backing up or not, but I would like to understand better the vitalness of removing those bushes and that one hammerhead of asphalt that's being put there.
Dave, do you want to speak to the removal of that stuff, or you want me to do it?
Go for it.
So we're trying to provide an area immediately north of the maintenance building, or if you can tell Mr. and Mrs. Nelson that we don't know what's going to occur there. We just think it's going to become, especially at the throat of the property, when vehicles are coming and going, and trust me, it's a very, very active environment there, early in the morning and later in the afternoon, when people are coming and going. The idea of having an area to pull off and provide
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing the conversation.
Freedom of, not our intent to put. I'm having connectivity issues.
Yeah, John, you want me to help?
Sure.
Okay. So we've got this area right at the front of our entrance, our useful entrance, and the Nelsons have my great respect, want us to tell them exactly what we're going to use this area for. And I can tell you all that there are no specific materials or equipment that will be stored there on a daily basis. I see this as a staging area for us because it's so close to the front entrance. And it could change seasonally with a little bit of additional sand, course equipment, plant material as we bring trees and bushes in to plant on the golf course are perfectly staged there out of the way before we get the chance to plant them. Hardscape material like Unilock pavers, which we are constantly bringing in and out. Construction material, it may be soil, it may be sod. It's a great way for us to use this area in and out. And I can't tell you what it's going to be every day, every season. It's going to change by the day. It's going to change by the season. And as you can imagine, after having lived with the property for 28 years, I can't imagine that I'm going to spend a day letting this new property enhancement turn into a junkyard in any corner of the operation. So Mr. Nelson would like us to tell him exactly what's going in there. It's going to be different seasonally, monthly, weekly, and it might be different daily.
Okay, and I'm leafing through the documents here. Sorry, go ahead, John.
No, I think it's important to recognize the fact that it's
I'm sorry, the conversation's not coming through.
The area that we're talking about is an area that's about 20 by 30 feet. Parking stall. This is not an enormous piece of real estate being dedicated to. I'm breaking up again because I see something on my computer. But it's not going to be an eyesore. Dave takes too much pride in what he does, and it's too close to the access point or the entry point of the club. And so it's just, we wouldn't allow that to happen.
Could I ask a question about that? Would it be acceptable to have as a condition of approval that there be no storage bins or permanent storage places there, that it be used just for transient things. So we don't have like dumpsters or sand bins that are just kind of put there because it's convenient.
I don't have any. Dave, do you have a problem with that?
No, was
Yeah,
never-
no, we don't want anything permanent. There's no intention of making anything permanent.
And that's why it's been so difficult for us to give a great answer to Mr. Nelson on what's going to be there, because it's going to be changing.
Well, good. If we could add that to our conditions, that'd be great.
Okay, it appears to me that those 22 burning bushes are being replaced by 7 serviceberry plants. Is that correct, or trees?
7 serviceberry, and then the pine trees that go on the back of that pad outside the fence.
Right, and those are to the east. The serviceberries are to the north, if I understand the diagrams correctly.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Those are the items that I wanted to get responses to from our applicant, from the community comments. Are there any other, from our commissioners, any other subjects you'd like to ask about?
Looks like Richard has a question.
Yeah,
Yes,
I do. We've been talking about the, on Kenilworth Avenue, that the club would continue to maintain the trees, shrubs, other landscaping, which is so important and so valuable. I'm wondering if we can make that one of the conditions of our appearance review certificate, that they maintain this landscaping.
Well, they've stated that they will do that. I don't know of, I don't, we certainly could, I guess. I don't know that binds them legally because it's the parkway, but as Dave said, it's what their philosophy is, and it's what the protocol is, and we'll met, frankly, just in terms of property owners in the street parkway. But we could certain, Michael, if you're speaking, you're on mute. Okay. But Richard, we could certainly do that.
Great.
Okay, I have 5, for lack of a better term, conditions that we've discussed as a commission that would be part of a motion, if we so make one, to grant an appearance review certificate. One would be that the trees at the northeast corner be added to by a count of 2 pine trees that were on the plan that was submitted late today. There was a sentiment and a desire to ensure that there is some kind of opaque cap to the material bins in the center of the site. There was a desire to cap the lighting color level of any exterior lighting at 4,000 Kelvin lamps. There is a desire to ensure that there is no permanent use and or storage of materials on the asphalt pad at the immediate northeast corner of the site. And there is a desire to ensure that the Indian Hill Country Club continues its maintenance of the property immediately south of the new property line in the parkway between its property line and the street. I'm only listing these for others to forward a formal motion, and I'll give that opportunity to my fellow commissioners. But it looks like before we do that, I want to ensure that Mr. Thompson, are you would you like to say something? You've been on mute.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was appropriate to rebut or not, so that's why I didn't jump in there on anything. So I apologize for that. I still haven't, I still think the buffering, the foliage that's been afforded us in that southeast corner of the perimeter is subpar, given what's been afforded elsewhere on Kenilworth Avenue and on Hunter Road. And I'd like to see that improve somewhat. Because it's quite sparse at this point in time, and it leaves open that very, very poor fence, and it's depressing.
Well, those are the existing conditions. Dave, do you have any response to that?
Yeah, if Mr. Thompson would like to come over and walk around the property with me, and if we can find a couple of places to add some more plants for Mr. Thompson within reason, be happy to meet with him and look that area over.
Yeah, I'd be even willing to, share costs on the thing. I feel that strongly about it, and I appreciate what you're undertaking here, and I'd like to be supportive of it, but I'd like to get some support in return, and I appreciate your offer, Dave.
So on that topic, that will not be resolved here, I do not believe, and I think this is frankly a nice gesture on the club's part, and hopefully I'd like to hope that the club and Mr. Thompson and his family could move forward with that offline of the formal process here, because it's something that might take a little bit of time to resolve, it sounds like.
I did want to just mention, looks like Jeff had a question.
Yes, Jeff.
I guess a lot of times before, when we were together, we would share images or do Google Street View, and I guess I could paste something in the chat. It goes back to those burning bushes, and I know it's on the club side of, and the one side they're saying let's not do anything to the existing building because we don't want to expose it, but by really taking those burning bushes down, is exposed on their side, which is fine, but I really think it's going to be visible. I don't know, is this allowed to share my screen for a second, Lucas? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, can everybody see my screen or not yet?
I can see it.
So this is the 20 or 21 bushes, and I mean, it does cover a huge amount of that building that we talked about. It already looks like there's tons of stuff going on and working within that oak tree as well. So I mean, I know it's your visibility of what your people from your club are going to be seeing as they approach greens or other parts of the project. And if the service berries, I mean, that's your side, so I'm not worried about it, but it is a quite impressive row of trees when you look at like this. So just wanted to share that. And then our oaks that are not gonna be there anymore. But
Here.
Yep. So I just wanted to share that.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Well, there's no doubt that those have a very impactful barrier, visual barrier. I think what we have to vote on is the replacement of those with the service berry and the 5 new pines. And
you should use the don't use that. Use this.
Which? Give me,
Yeah, these don't,
because I'm losing them.
the battery isn't strong enough.
Nada, we can hear you.
I'm sorry.
And Jim.
Good evening, guys.
I have to get my IT.
I'm the last guy that you would think would be an IT supporter, but anyway, do what I can.
Okay. Understanding that we have another case after this, I'd like to ask the commission if there is a desire to move to a vote to approve with any of the conditions that we've outlined, and if somebody would like to make that motion.
I will move for the approval of the appearance certificate, subject to all of the conditions that the chairman listed a few moments ago.
Second.
Thank you, Nada. Lucas, could you please call the roll?
Yes. Nada Andrick,
Yes.
Richard Brill,
Yes.
Devin Castellano,
Yes.
Doug Johnson,
Yes.
Mason Miller,
Yes.
Jeffrey Saad,
Yes.
and Charles Smith.
Yes. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody. Our applicants and the public. I think there's been, from my perspective, there's been improvements made that have been driven by a negotiation. And hopefully it sounds like there's still some ongoing improvements that may be discussed between the club and the neighbors. Thank you, commissioners, for the questions. And Lucas, if you could please introduce the next case.
Thank you.
Charles, I
very
wonder
much.
if we could take like a 2-minute break so that we all have our full attention devoted to this.
Sure, I think that's 2 minutes to get ourselves organized and back on here, because our second case applicants have been waiting very patiently for quite a long time.
Great, thank you very much.
Lucas, if you can hear me, we're leaving the meeting also.
Okay, all right. Thank you,
Thank-
Mr.
Thank
Basindos.
you for your help.
You're welcome.
Thank you for everything tonight, Lucas. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, it looks like we have everyone. Richard, are you available?
Yes, I'm back.
Okay, thank you. Lucas, do we have, I see Michael there. Do we have others from the petitioner that will be part of the group that are not here yet, or are we
Yes,
okay?
they're all on the call.
Okay, wonderful. Could you please call the next case, please?
Sure. Case 2020 AR 19 for 1168 Wilmette Avenue. The petitioner is Michael Clark, requesting an appearance review certificate to remodel the storefront, including new windows, relocation of the entrance, new knee wall material, and lighting. And in addition to what was sent out on Friday, there are two renderings that I have that I can add, which were sent but did not make it into the packet. So I can share those whenever the applicant wants to talk about those.
Okay, thank you. Welcome back, Michael.
Thank you.
We'd like to give you the opportunity to represent your case. I don't remember if all of us were at your last presentation. Many of us remember it, but if you'd like to give us a quick overview and then highlight what you've done since you and Mr. Berman were with us last, that would be super. Thank you.
Okay. Actually, Joel, if you could just take it from there, that'd be great.
Sure. Okay, so Lucas, could you pull up the drawings?
Yeah, the perspectives or the whole set.
Why don't we just start at the first one?
Okay.
We'll proceed. Actually, you know what? Why don't we start with these? I think that's perfect. Okay, so first I want to give a general overview of what we discussed last time, and then I'm going to talk about how we changed the design so that to take into account your comments. So first, we're doing major renovations to the facade. We're putting in operable glass, which will be good for the pedestrian experience and will be good for the restaurant. We're creating a knee wall treatment that is in keeping with the historic proportions of the building and is contextual to the neighborhood. And we discussed the color last time and the material. And we're also relocating the entrance. So the issues from the last meeting were, number one, the material and the color of the knee wall, and also the material that's above the front door. Concern about people not being concerned about there being a conflict when people would open the front door because it swings out. And also in general about the temperature of the lighting. So let me go one by one. Lucas, could you show the other image that's actually the other image that's in this set? Yeah, there we go. Right. So first off, the concern was that we were using a natural wood for the blue areas. And so what and that maybe that wouldn't hold up to the weather. So what we decided was that it makes sense to use a cement fiberboard. Hardy board would be a trade name. And so the blue areas have a much denser, harder, more durable surface. And then where the product ends to the right under the windows, we're putting in a Schluter strip. So that's going to be an aluminum edging that will further protect it. Furthermore, we have sills that are right below the glass that cover the top of it. Dealing with the issue of the door, we added a round portal, which actually I think is a nice addition to the design. It balances everything out. And the other, one more concern that I didn't mention was the heights, was the height of the knee wall. And Lucas, could you take it to the other set of drawings?
Sure.
Okay. So here, these haven't changed that much, but here's the demolition. So that's the existing facade. I would argue that we're actually improving and we're making it more desirable in the way that we're changing it. We're actually improving the streetscape. You can see that the bifold windows open in on the plan below. The door opening out now has a window so that there's much less likelihood of a conflict when somebody's opening the door. And then below you can see the materials called out and the section running through the storefront. Why don't we take a look at the color drawing, Lucas? I think it's the next image down. So what we did was we talked about creating a drawing, taking photographs, stitching them together, and actually showing both sides of the intersection. So here we are on Wilmette Avenue. What this drawing shows is, what this photo shows, what both of them show, below is Central Street. You can see Rock House, and then you can see other parts of the storefronts. You can see that the knee walls vary greatly, and some of them are quite high. And we would argue that we are very contextual in our handling of the knee wall and the knee wall height. So, in conclusion, we've responded to your feedback, and we appreciate the feedback, and we feel that we've incorporated your comments, and that we're in context, and that we're actually helping improve the downtown street life and the aesthetics. You want to add anything, Michael?
No, that's you right on.
Okay, thank you, Joel. Really nice, efficient summary of where you were versus where you are. So I appreciate the pointed comments that you've walked us through here. Want a quick question. I know last time, and then I'll get to the opportunity for the commissioners to speak, but I know last time the submission was for the facade without a sign. Is that the same here? Is that sign a placeholder, or is that part of our appearance review certificate action tonight?
So I'm sorry, I could take that. It has taken all the way until earlier today for the sign company to provide for me what was asked a month ago. So that is the placement of the sign, and it is the general rendering or size of the sign, but this is not an official sign meeting because I was unable to get it in time.
Okay, yeah, I was going to make the comment that we don't have enough details, to be honest, on that. So I just want our commissioners to know that, and please, let's just not spend time asking about the sign right now because it's not material to what we may or may not act on this evening. So what I'd like to do is go in reverse order this time and offer the floor to Mr. Brill.
Thank you very much, Charles. I've got two questions and 2 points. Is your final plan you're submitting still that blue-gray wood plank going across the entire front? The drawing and the photograph are different.
It's a midnight blue. I left a sample out as asked in front of the storefront during this period of time with the paint sample to be able to take a look at. I do not have that with me now because it is out there in case someone was coming by today. But it's a midnight blue.
Okay, and it is wood planks going across.
No, it's cement board.
So it's a composite material. It's much more durable than wood. It looks like wood. It in fact has a grain like wood. It's a cement board, so it's wood fiber mixed with cement, and it's very, very durable.
Okay, that helps. My second question is the door that we've talked a lot about, the solid door. You've added, I think, a circular small window on top. When you look at every other door of every other retail property in both photos and across the streets, they're glass doors, you know, almost floor to ceiling, wall to wall. They're almost all glass. And you don't have to worry about opening a door and kids walking by or somebody not looking carefully through that small circular opening. You know, I'd feel more comfortable if it was glass like everybody else all the way through. Is there any possibility of doing that?
My preference is to have a solid door to complete the look. I do realize that glass doors are more prevalent around with some solid wood doors. I don't know if I can draw a couple of the Alchemy, I believe it's called, coffee house at 4th and Linden is an example of a solid wood door as well. As an example. Yeah.
I'd also argue that this door is different because most of what I see in downtown Wilmette, it's a full storefront with a clear glass door. What we've done is we've actually separated the door. We've also provided glass that's to the side of the door, and then we've put a portal in the door. And this is a traditional type door that you might see at a restaurant or a tavern under these conditions.
Thank you.
I do want to also mention that the building plans are in for permit review now, and they're currently with the building inspector. So he is taking a look at the door to make sure it meets code. I know there is some code reference to doors not opening out into a walkway, but I don't have any confirmation yet if it applies in this case. That review by our building plan official Scott Berg is not complete.
Lucas, is there a use of the public way application in Wilmette?
Actually, I don't know. I don't think this is related to the Village of Wilmette Public Way Code. I think it's related to either building code or Wilmette accessibility or ADA.
Okay. I would think that if it were ADA, if it were accessible, it might relate to the door operator.
I think, Lucas, if I may, the origin of doors opening in and out had to do with a fire that occurred, I think it was in Brooklyn. And it's a matter of people pressing up against a door that opened inward and not being able to get out. So it was originally a fire code thing. It's typically in building codes, and I do not know how the village views it, but oftentimes they're allowed to open in on a establishment that doesn't have a large amount of people. So it is worth taking a look at.
it would, if it opened in, I think it might actually, obviously now it doesn't matter, but it might actually reduce the occupancy, the allowed occupancy in the restaurant.
It would, yeah, the maximum occupancy would be 50 before you would need to swing the door out. I do know that.
That's right. That's right.
So let's let the code official, the building official address that issue. Joel and Michael have addressed their position on the solidity and the glazing. Richard, any other questions for the?
Those are my two issues.
Okay, very good. Mason, are you with us? Are you back with us?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I wasn't at the last, or I had technical difficulties at the last meeting, fortunately. So I missed the first round of this. I just had a few comments. I think that the scale of the entry seems small relative to the size of the restaurant. Also, I feel like I've seen that door, a door similar to that, but typically in sort of like kind of a, just a bar, downtown or something. I feel like the knee wall gives the overall impression that it sort of makes the restaurant look closed in, and it doesn't address the street as much as it could. And I'm not a fan of the blue color against the brick. I don't think it's not going to work. But those are my comments so far.
Could you clarify a little bit as to how you feel that the knee wall treatment makes it feel closed in?
I think because the boards are horizontal, it kind of emphasizes that kind of skirt that runs along the bottom. If that was more of like a solid panel or something that de-emphasized the horizontal, might be better. If you look at some of the other restaurants on that street, I think the storefront's lower, but I think they address the street a little bit better. I think this feels very closed in. So it gives the overall impression that it looks closed in. It looks sealed somehow. And yeah, that's my overall impression. So I don't know how to address that other than taking a look at that skirt.
I would say in general, I think the restaurant is actually very open to the street. It has very large operable clear glass windows that don't even have a transom above them. They open all the way up. And that it's traditional treatment is that the knee wall is a different color, oftentimes darker than the rest of the wall. Did you have a chance to actually go take a look at the sample that Michael set up?
No, unfortunately, I did not.
Okay.
So I'm kind of relying on the image and the rendering.
I think it would make sense to actually take a look at it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Could I come add my comments at this point, because I would like to continue this conversation for a second. For that, is it possible to get the elevation, the drawing of the elevation?
Up on the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, just a second.
Sorry, Mason, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to add to your argument. There was another elevation, I thought, colored.
The rendering.
Oh, it's the rendering. Okay. I have the following question. Did you change the height of the knee wall of the parapet?
No,
Because how tall is the window above the opening?
the opening, it's actually in the construction drawing.
But would you
7
know
feet 6 inches.
how much?
It's 7 feet 6, 42 inches to the sill height and 7 feet 6 inches above that.
So would you consider lowering the wall? I know that you have seating along the window, but there is nothing wrong with cantilevered bar, or, you know, the ledge, and the window being longer and deeper and higher, actually.
Okay.
So my question is the following, and I'm saying that only because I think it will be beneficial to you, to the restaurant, because with you, the name of the restaurant and the food that you're going to be serving is about outdoor. It's about fun and so on. And I think Mason is completely right that this looks like some speakeasy almost.
Speakeasy.
So I would just, this is my exactly the same comment as Mason had.
Okay, that's fair. From a practical standpoint, what we did was really what's setting the height is it's a counter that runs across on the inside. You can see it on the plan that's above the elevation that's on screen. And so the counter is our height, and which I think it's a great experience for the customers because they're sitting up and then they're at eye level with people that are passing by. Also, people walking by, their eyes are at 5 feet, and they're actually you're actually perceiving the glass and less of what's below it. So I think it's actually very much more open than you know than you perceive it in 2 dimensions. You know, I think actually a very large percentage of the facade is glass in our scheme. And furthermore, there's precedence. You know, we did the photograph with the post editing to show that there's a large variation in the heights of knee walls along this intersection.
Well, if I may, I think the counter along the window is terrific, and I think you definitely should keep it. But I would feel, you know, you have to think about the psychology of the people that are walking by and the people that are going to come in that place. They need to be invited inside also. So just making that window more inviting and taller, and it will be friendlier, and it will be more, as I keep saying, responding to the name and you know, mission of your restaurant. And I'm saying that as only from your point of view, actually, that it will be more beneficial. This is my opinion, and I have been there and I looked at your sample and I saw the color. You know, I also don't understand why you like blue, but you know, that is something that you are privy to. And you know, but the fact, if you would reduce the knee wall and create a bigger elevation above of the opening with the cantilevered counter, I think that you're going to get much more attractive, modern, and inviting place. I am saying that with a great compassion, that it would be of great help actually for your restaurant. Each one of these restaurants along this elevation is, you know, creating their own little personality. And the fact that this, you know, knee walls vary probably has to do with what's inside. And the violin place did one thing, and you know, so it doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. What is good for you? And I am firmly believing that you may want to consider how to, you know, increase that inviting sign to the people to come in the restaurant. I'm not sure what is that detail going to look like still with the even if it is a cement board with some sort of a channel on top.
It's a cement, so it's a cement board. It's going to have a Schluter strip, which I guess Schluter strip is it's a really highly engineered German product that will encase the edge and protect it. It'll look beautiful. It won't be noticeable. It's going to look very clean and it will. I think that you would actually be happy with the final product if you saw it. We've detailed it so that it's very clean and protected edge.
Thank you.
Okay, Nada. Thank you for your comments and questions. Commissioner Saad.
I'm going to go against the group a little bit so far. I think what you've done is pretty interesting, and I sort of like the idea of the peephole and the speakeasy and a Texas or Austin barbecue place that's sort of in the neighborhood that you want to look in there. You maybe can't see everything and you don't want to see everything, but the food's hopefully really good in there, and that's why you come back. And it's not about how big the glass or how modern it is. It's more of pulling off the entire vibe that you're trying to do with the restaurant. And I guess that's what I'm getting much more out of this than the presentation last time. Also, I went by and saw the color. I mean, color's so subjective for everybody. And I guess when you look at the renderings too, think about the mullions. I know you're showing like a jet black mullion. I don't know if that's ASS or just sort of what that looks like is going to be just as important as the blue compared to the brick. So just looking at those frames and actually the size of the frames and what does that mean? But I mean, I see the door as maybe like people scratch it or it looks dinged up a little bit and it's not so pristine. And so that's where I'm sort of getting the vibe, and I know others aren't right now, but I mean, you're going for it. So those are my comments.
So the one minor thing, the metal is actually dark bronze anodized aluminum, so it's not black, so it's not so stark.
Okay, and then with the light fixtures match that too, the bronze.
Yes, yeah, they would match that color.
Yep. Okay.
Our rendering maybe didn't do justice to that color, but it's a very deep, heavy brown, saturated brown.
They look black, but so bronze is better, at least today.
Thank you.
Okay. Jeff, thank you. Any other comments, Jeff?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson.
Yes, I have to say I see both approaches to the height of the knee wall. I think this is an immense improvement over last week. I think it makes a nice statement. I can see the arguments on both sides. I think visually, I think it's nice. I do have to say, and I know we're not discussing signs, but your rendering takes advantage of the way that sign is done. And I think that plays into it. And it's not a part of what we're talking about today, but that's a part of the entire look. I also, you didn't mention it, but one of the issues was color temperature of all outside lighting, and clearly to keep it to the warm side. I guess my concern here is that we're all kind of throwing the tennis ball back and forth across the fence about this door. And I don't feel comfortable kind of letting it happen. I think it's a safety issue. I think it's a great look if it were set back 3 feet or with an entryway or something like that. I mean, that's fine. I think I would feel very comfortable right now approving a full glass door there, but I know that's not the look you want. And I also think it's a very attractive look. The problem is the safety issue. And I really am concerned, Lucas, if we can nail down who's responsible for deciding this, what the criteria are, so that it kind of seems to be bouncing around a little bit. And I'm uncomfortable with the safety of it. The knee wall, it looks in the rendering deceptively low. It's 3.6, and that's fairly high up. And so that portal is pretty far up. So you're not going to see short people or kids. And I think people coming out of a tavern with a door like that aren't going to necessarily open it slowly. And we've got a newly designed downtown that has areas for outdoor seating. We have kids running back and forth. And I'm just very concerned about the door. So that's my comment.
Well, one of the things, if I could, about the height of the counter and why it is not to be counter height. Counter height means that you have to sit to eat. A bar height means you're able to stand there. You're able to stand and eat, stand and be a part of the whole energy of the restaurant. And for me, the standing part of it is along the lines of a barbecue feel, where you would stand at a counter up against a pole or a post or in Texas, and so that's why the height of the counter is bar height, and therefore the knee wall has to come up so we can open those windows, of course, to be above the bar thing. So just conceptually, I didn't throw that out there, but that is the reasoning for what that is, why it's at that height and not having people just have to sit.
Well, it makes sense, and I think it is a look, and I'm fine with it. I think it's actually kind of interesting and attractive, and is consistent in a way with the other buildings. But the door, I really would like to hear you address the possibility of some alternative to the door.
Well, I can further look at doors. The glass doors, it's just doesn't read right for the remainder of the field for me. So I can continue to look at a door that will show more of a safety situation and come back with some other alternatives. But yeah, I'd be really disappointed in having to have a glass door. For me, that reads, strip mall and everywhere else, is to have one of those doors, and to put the kind of energy and detail into the rest of the look would just be something I try to stick with something on the wood and find a compromise in there.
I hear you and agree. I mean, the alternative is to open it inward, if that's permitted for the fire code or zoning code, wherever it is now.
Well, I guess a question, Lucas,
seats for that.
Do we even have any kind of say? I mean, that's for the code official, not for us, right?
It's, I mean, something like that. If it's not meeting building code, that would go to building code board of appeals.
Yeah.
Okay. I agree. That's true, and that's why I brought up the comment that it seems to be knocking around here. I mean, I think we need a definitive statement of where the jurisdiction lies, and so that it lands somewhere. So I agree with you. I mean, I don't know what the answer necessarily is, but I think we need to know who's deciding it and how it's being decided.
It would be decided by our building code official. He may need to talk to our fire department. I don't know, but.
But I mean, what are the standards of decision? I feel like I'm kind of at odds here because we're all thinking about this door and we don't quite know what the standards are.
You mean?
It's based on occupancy.
Right. That's my understanding of how those codes work. But it's not up to the building inspector. It's up to what's in the codes. And I don't know that I understand the definition or what's required for outward opening doors, should they be allowed? I feel uncomfortable, and that's part of the visual look of this building. It's part of one of the standards of review, consideration of the relationship to the pedestrian environment. And with kids and people around there, I think that's a consideration that nominally falls to us unless we decide what the standards are that make it fall to someone else.
Doug, I would make the observation that the standard of impact on the pedestrian way from a functionality perspective, yes. From a code perspective, that's not our purview.
Right. I agree.
Okay. All right. So that's a point of continued discussion. Devin, do you have questions and or comments?
Sure. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. I think that with the issue of the door, you know, I understand the intent of wanting to keep the wood door. I have the same safety concerns. I would feel better if there was some sort of permanent, maybe like planters or something that to the south, so that as that door swings open, it would hit a planter before it hit a person, and it would also that's walking in down the street from getting too close to that door, because I don't think everyone's going to be thinking about it as they're walking. So maybe there's some sort of that was just one example, but maybe there's something that the applicant could look at to find a way to, if they are have strong feelings about using a wood door, maybe there's something that they can do to increase the safety of that choice. I agree with the knee wall issue. There are examples of floating knee walls. Starbucks on Green Bay Road in Washington has bar height seating along their curtain wall. I understand that these windows are operable, but if that there might be another option, whether they had operable windows above and then glazing below, or Renlita has lots of foldable retractable or window systems, so maybe there could be some alternatives for that. But I agree with the other commissioners' statements about the knee wall. I do have a question with the knee wall in the building section. It looks like it's being filled in, and then the cement board is being applied to the face of the existing brick, and then the infill CMU. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
So, and then so that material, that cement board, is actually going to be sitting proud of the existing brick. Is that also the case?
You mean in front of?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so you'll have to think about what Schluter strips you're using. You might, just because those two faces are not aligned, that cement board is definitely going to stick out. And actually, I think it would probably look better if it was recessed, if it was sitting inward of exterior brick as opposed to in front. Typically when you see those panels, usually they're inside of the masonry structure. But I understand that you're trying to work with the existing brick below. But that detail might look a little bit odd. And then I know Nada mentioned the sill detail. So between the windows and then the new cement board, I know you mentioned a Schluter strip, but is there going to be some sort of cap that's part of the window system that is going to wrap the top of that cement board, or how exactly is?
So there's going to be cast stone sills below the windows. So those will cap the Those will actually extend out a little bit with a drip.
Okay, and will that be, what is that going to be, look like a limestone color, or what exactly? Or is that going to match the brick?
Close to a limestone color. That seems more in keeping with the context of the other storefronts.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just a few of those details. I almost feel like that, you know, if you have a stone sill, typically you would see stone below it. So to put stone on top of the cement board seems, I don't know. Lucas, could you pull up that rendering again?
Sure.
And Lucas, maybe do you want to show that there were some context photos that we included?
Yeah.
I don't think we ever actually looked at them.
So those are the context photos, but you were.
Yeah, I was looking for the rendering that would show that silk, the sill material with the cement board.
So, you know, looking at that, maybe the cement board should actually stop below the sill. I agree with you there. It would be cleaner. But there's a cast stone sill that would replicate limestone color below the glass.
Similar to what's above the glass currently by the dentils.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Which is already existing.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that would just occur at the window locations, correct?
Correct.
How are you going to feel the difference where there is no window?
So where there's no window, we'll put an aluminum strip to cap it, to protect it.
To see some sort of aluminum sill that is part of the window system or applied to the window system, that will make it, that would draw less attention to that strip.
So you think it should be maybe brake metal that matches the anodized aluminum?
Personally, I think having a stone, I think having a stone sill without, it just seems kind of odd to me. Just with the cement board below it.
I agree with you, and it's simpler, and you're right. It's visual. It's less visual clutter that way. Yeah, I think that's actually really smart.
And then I think the one, and just looking at I mean, I like, you know, I see matching the knee wall with the infill above the door. Window.
Devin, your
panel above could get some.
Devin, could you repeat that? You're freezing on us.
Freezing. Sorry. So the one in looking at that the rendering too, I feel like there that entry, you know, I know you're trying to have this really nice, elegant wood door entry, and I feel like having the cement board above the window, the side window, and then the door, and I don't know if it's the proportions or the multiple. It seems like simplifying that might create a more.
Okay.
Devin, I think you're cutting out on me.
I'm cutting out. Sorry.
You said it would create a more, and then
just a more. I think simplifying that entry would create a more elegant entrance.
Okay.
Can you
Yeah, can you elaborate on that? I don't.
Well, you have the wood door with the porthole window, and then you have the side window, and I understand trying to use the cement board to kind of mimic what's going on at the knee wall. There just seems to be, I can't pinpoint exactly what it is, but I feel like if it was simplified, maybe if that the window was part of the door, so maybe the window was full height and didn't have the
I believe what she's saying is bringing the side light all the way down.
That would.
Are you saying, Devin, that maybe if it were a larger rectangular window in the door rather than round, and if it was glassier, is that what you're saying, or are you saying?
So I was talking about the window right next to the door. So typically, a lot of times you have the side lights, and it feels like that window is part of like a door, like the system, and it just seems odd to me right now because it's not it's not part of your window system. And like I said, there's a lot going on at the door. I'm not sure what it is exactly, but I feel like it could be simplified, possibly. Just a thought.
Mm-hmm.
Comment.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, I believe all of our commissioners have had an opportunity to observe. Thank you for addressing the comments previously. I do like the door. I was the one who brought up the solid door to start. I do like the porthole. I like the side light. I agree with Devin, frankly, though, on the awkwardness of that little piece that goes underneath the window, the side light window that's half height that includes the building number. It might be more elegant, frankly, and I don't know, from a functionality perspective, I think it would help too. My only, I go back to the comment, it's not under our purview, but that door swinging out into the pedestrian walkway, I think we need to hear back from the building permit official on that. I believe that the sill height would work out okay, because I think what it does is it will direct your attention upward in the restaurant to the place where the people are, which in some ways puts a little pressure on to have a nice, interesting ceiling, and because your view is going to be upward in the restaurant. So I think that puts a little bit of onus on the interior design to be the lighting to be interesting, have the ceiling be interesting. I just remember it's a very urban experience to walk by something like that and seeing people right at the window. In the old, was it Pete's? Is that what it was called? Or Nick's? In Nick's, you had people sitting parallel to the window down, so they were down lower, and thus that knee wall was lower because you had people that were lower. Here, you're going to, as Michael was saying, you're having people standing up and sitting up at bar height, so you're seeing activity. So I really don't mind the height of that knee wall right now, because I think it's proportionate with the activity that's going to happen behind it. Other than that, I don't have a lot of comments. The color, I think Jeff's right, it's subjective. It's dark, it's not bright and boastful, at least it's dark. So I think that's something from my perspective that is up to is up to the branding in some ways of the restaurant. So that's fine. The big question becomes in some ways the legality of that door swinging out the way it is, and then the question more aesthetic on the side light issue.
Could I follow up on your comments about I think the conversation is kind of, at least for me, crystallized this into two parts. One of them is indeed the code, what the code is about, and whether a commission other than us thinks it's appropriate. I think, though, and I just want to put this out there so that when we have another conversation, it's clear that one of our standards is that the design takes into consideration the relationship to the street and the pedestrian environment. And I think the definition of pedestrian environment is the structure's relationship to the pedestrian movement and flow. I think this falls squarely within that. And pedestrian movement and flow with a swinging door that might be dangerous, to me, is a part of this. So I just think we need to look at it in the two-pronged approach, and that part of it is ours.
One thing I wanted to bring up while we're still discussing this is, I mean, the applicant has submitted for permit, and you know it's under review. Part of their timing and their lease is going to be getting started at least with some of the construction. You know, I'm hearing a little more consensus at this meeting than the last meeting. And one of the things that is potentially going to hold up the construction is their need, as I understand, to remove a portion of the wall so that they can get their smoker equipment in. And I'm wondering if the commission has any thoughts on at least allowing them to demo a portion of the knee wall to allow them to move forward with at least that portion, the interior remodeling. If there's some of the exterior work that's still outstanding.
I have no problem with that. I don't know why we would want to slow up or hinder that forward movement.
Okay.
We don't know if other commissioners have a feeling one way or the other.
I wouldn't have a issue with it. I mean, do you need a second, or do we need to?
Well, I guess I want to get a feel from the commission. There's some of us are supporting everything in some ways with a few aesthetic refinements. Some people are objecting to some pretty meaningful issues that are on the table here. So I want to get a sense if there's an ability to move forward, or do we need to ask the applicant to come back and respond one more time to our concerns?
I mean, I guess opening it up to Joel as who signed and sealed these drawings, and like all architects, he's saying that they follow the code and that's his drawings and what he's doing. So I know there's conversations, and I mean, in my spare time right now looking at NFPA 101, I couldn't find an issue, but I go back and look. So I mean, I think it would be appropriate to move forward with, but that's me.
Well, I mean, my comments were, if we were to move forward, my vote would be a no based on my understanding of pedestrian environment. And we haven't properly considered it.
From my understanding, I don't see how we would, with occupancy, with a restaurant occupancy, I don't see how we would be able to swing the door in unless it was really small. So I personally, I can't imagine that there would be a way around this.
Well, my question would be why could the door not be recessed? Because it appears that there, in the limited amount of planning that we see there, that almost the depth of the counter and the seating would allow that to happen. Michael and Joel, I don't know what happens beyond that to the west, but is that an option or not?
Well, it takes out it. It likely would take out some seating to do it. I'm going to let Michael address that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the bottom line of that, right? If we move a door, we move seating. There's beyond that, not that you would have these drawings, but would be a host desk, and beyond that, banquettes. So Everything has to adjust. What I'm guessing is approximately 4 feet. And so that's for sure a 4-top. So
Yeah, we'll probably lose 4 seats if we do that.
How
And
wide is the door?
I'm sorry,
How wide is the door?
3 feet.
Yeah, that's pretty tight planning if you're going to lose a full 4-top by using that existing recess to move it back.
I mean, the economics of restaurants are very, very tight, especially now.
which I do need to point out one and parrot what Lucas just said. This is a circumstance that I need the committee to be very aware of, that I need to be able to get a smoker in, and to be able to open. I'm just, to be absolutely transparent, I'm at full rent right now, having taken over Nick's. So another month of this is a staggering amount of money for a restaurant in this scenario. And so I have to be very transparent with that this is, my smoker is coming from Texas. It is 3,600 pounds. It's 10 feet long. It's 7 feet wide. It's 8 feet high. It doesn't fit any other way. And it's coming. That's the truth of it, because it's a fabricated situation. It's not off the shelf. So I appreciated that Lucas pointed out that fact. I am up against it, so to speak. So there you are.
So Michael, just to understand, so part of the demo is not just for the facade construction, is to get the equipment in and out.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, fellow commissioners, I think there's a general consensus on everything on the revised plan except the door. Can we separate the door and possibly vote on everything else?
I mean, that's a possibility, yeah. It's up to the commission.
Well, I mean, we have an alternative, and that is a door that has visibility so that it isn't the same impact on pedestrian flow. I just worry for somebody approving something with a door that won't ultimately be approved,
Yeah, I'm not 100% convinced, Doug, that that's the case, because I'd like the building building code official to weigh in on the opening into the right-of-way, glass or no glass. I mean, frankly, if that was legal there, I would be in full support of it, because it has the window port and it's got the side light. And I was the one who brought this up last time. So, so I think there's multiple issues on it. If we can separate the door, we may or may not have a unanimous vote, but if we get a majority, then, that project can move forward and they can start the demo. So, upon final demo approvals, permit approvals. So I would ask if there's a motion on the floor that separates that, and let's test and see where we're at as a group.
I have a motion to approve case number 2020 AR 19 with the stipulation of the door to be reviewed by the building official.
What about the door to be reviewed by us at the subsequent meeting?
And the door to be reviewed by us in a subsequent meeting.
So essentially, Jeff, you're identifying a motion for approval, carving out the issue of the door from approval or non-approval from this particular action.
Correct.
is that pertains only to the swing? Or is that to the material and design and the whole appearance?
I would be interested to see, you know, to piggyback on Commissioner Charles' his inquiry about shifting that door inward. I think if you could provide a floor plan showing the what design changes would have to occur with the furniture plan, I think that would be helpful.
Well, I appreciate the difficulty of this. I really do. And if there's a so-called complete carve out of the door, I'm willing to support that. But I think that comes with the realization that, you know, there's a possibility that a solid wood door might not be what we all agree on at a later point, nor maybe a separate issue be what the building department agrees on. I also agree that, you know, some consideration of swinging inward, and even if it's not fully 4 feet back, enough that it's not a 3-foot door swinging into a 6-foot sidewalk.
Yeah,
so I would support that.
That issue of everything from the swing to me to the side light to the proportions and the material of the door, if we carve that out, that would be my recommendation to our group to vote on the issue absent those items.
So we're just voting on the kind of the knee wall and the storefront to the right.
Balance of everything else.
Okay.
And the sign is not included.
Right.
Okay. Is that clear, Lucas, in the motion?
Yeah, I think if someone could redo the motion just so it's clear for the record. Sorry.
Jeff, why don't you restate it with all of that in mind?
All right. Motion to approve AR 2020 AR 19 for the knee wall, the operable windows, the lighting design with the stipulations of the warmer tone and color. Under review is the opening for the door of the entry into the restaurant, if needed to be recessed or looked at as a different material in future findings from code review pending the Village of Wilmette.
Okay. Understood. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Nada Andrick?
Well, I'm trying to digest the whole thing, but I think it is in essence splitting the door and issues related to door with everything else, from everything else, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Richard Brill?
Yes.
Devin Castellano?
Yes.
Doug Johnson?
Yes.
Lisa Miller?
Yes.
Jeffrey Saad?
Yes.
And Charles Smith?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Michael and Joel. Appreciate you sticking with us. Obviously, it's an important issue for the village and appreciate what you did to move it to this position. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
We'll see you next month for the sign.
Okay, very good.
Thank you so much.
Happy
Okay.
holidays to you guys. See ya.
See you. Goodbye. So I believe that's the end of our cases this evening. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Second.
Aye.
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 All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
See you, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay. Good night.